The Haelor Empire ruled many stars. Their ships were strong. Their fleets were endless. No one dared to challenge them. They believed they had mapped every system, every ship, every threat. But deep in the dark edges of space, something strange appeared. It started with a small signal, weak, faint, almost lost among the background noise of the galaxy. At first, the Empire's sensors ignored it. Space was full of random sounds, asteroids crashing, dying stars, gas clouds moving. But this signal was different. It repeated itself. A strange pattern, like a heartbeat, a signal too perfect to be natural. Commander Velrin, head of border security, was the first to notice it. He frowned at the report. A ghost ship, he said, laughing. We control this sector. There are no unknown ships here. Still, protocol demanded a check. He sent a small scout ship, the Vadrix, to investigate. The Vadrix reached the signal's location after 3 cycles. What they found made their blood run cold. Floating alone in the middle of empty space was a ship like none they had ever seen. It was black, blacker than the darkness around it. Its surface absorbed all light. It looked broken, like it had been through 1,000 battles. Yet, it had no markings, no flags, no energy readings. Nothing. The captain of the Vadrix, Terran Sol, felt a chill as he looked at the strange ship. He opened a channel back to Commander Velrin. We have visual contact. No ID. No response to hails. It's just floating, sir. Velrin ordered a deep scan. The results shocked everyone. No life signs. No known material signature. Energy readings, 0. Movement, slight drift against the solar wind. Against the solar wind. Terran frowned. That was wrong. Ships and debris in space moved with solar winds, not against them. It was like the ship was fighting the natural pull of the galaxy. Something is wrong, Terran said softly to his crew. They launched probe drones. The drones floated closer, scanning every inch of the strange ship. Suddenly, one of the drones vanished from sensors. Gone. No explosion. No signal. Just erased. Terran gripped the arm of his chair tightly. Commander Velrin, we have a problem. One of our probes. He never finished the sentence. The signal from the Vadrix cut off. Dead silence filled the command center back at the Empire's base. Velrin stood up sharply. What happened? Get them back. His officers scrambled to reconnect. They failed. All that remained was a single brief message from the Vadrix, auto-sent milliseconds before the signal died. It's not a ship. It's watching us. Panic rippled through the command staff. 1,000 questions filled the air. Was this a trap? An ancient weapon? A new enemy? Velrin ordered a fleet to prepare. We are the Haelor Empire, he said firmly. We will not be mocked by some ghost ship. But deep inside, even Velrin felt fear. This thing, whatever it was not normal. It was not broken. It was not dead. It was waiting. As the Empire's fleet moved toward the dark ship, hidden sensors inside the strange vessel awakened. Silent systems powered up. Invisible weapons shifted. The ship had been sleeping for a long time. Now, it was waking up, and it remembered its orders. Guard. Protect. Respond. The Haelor Empire had made a mistake. They had touched something they did not understand. Far away, in the dark heart of the human territories, ancient records still existed, forgotten by most, but not by all. One single line was written in bold letters. Project Sentinel. Do not approach. Danger level. Absolute. But it was too late for the Haelor Empire. The old warnings would not reach them in time. The trap was set, and the Empire had already stepped inside. The Haelor Empire moved fast. Within hours of losing the Vadrix, Commander Velrin had a full response team ready. 3 heavy cruisers, 2 scout ships, and a medical frigate set course toward the strange black ship. The Empire would not lose face. Not to a ghost. Not to anything. As the fleet approached, everyone stayed alert. Weapons were charged. Shields were at full power. The black ship floated silently, showing no signs of life. It looked even bigger now. Some said it was just their fear making it seem that way. Others were not so sure. Velrun gave a simple order. Board it. Find out what it is. Bring back answers. The scout ship Kavrin moved forward. 10 Haelor soldiers, trained for any situation, prepared to board the dark vessel. Their armor gleamed under the weak starlight. Their plasma rifles were ready. They had faced monsters, pirates, even enemy fleets before. Nothing had ever scared them. Until now. The boarding team fired a grappling beam, pulling their ship toward a small opening on the side of the black vessel. It looked like an airlock, but old and strangely shaped. Keep your helmets sealed. Captain Yorin, the team leader, warned. We don't know what's inside. The door opened with a slow hiss. Inside was darkness. Deep, heavy darkness, like the air itself was thick. Lights from their helmets showed strange walls, smooth, almost alive. The metal seemed to ripple when touched. Creepy place, one soldier muttered. They moved carefully, checking every corner. No signs of life. No power. No noise. It felt like walking inside a dead thing. Still, their scanners picked up strange signals. A kind of low hum, not in the air, but inside their minds. Are you hearing that? Asked one soldier. Everyone nodded. The deeper they went, the stranger it got. Rooms twisted in ways that made no sense. Hallways seemed to change direction when no one was looking. Shadows moved, even though there was nothing there. Captain Yorin called in. Commander Velrun, we have entered. No threats found yet. Continuing exploration. Velrun's voice came back firm. Be careful. If you find anything, report immediately. The team reached what looked like a control room. In the center was a chair. It was empty, but shaped strangely, like it was made for something not quite human. Behind it stood a large wall covered in symbols. Symbols no one had ever seen before. One soldier reached out and touched the wall. The ship woke up. The entire vessel shuddered once, like taking a deep breath. Lights flickered on, soft blue lines running along the walls, the floors, the ceiling. The air grew heavy. The door behind them slammed shut. Sir, we're locked in, one soldier shouted. Captain Yorin tried to override the door with his suit's hacking tools. Nothing worked. Then a voice spoke. Not through speakers, not through their suits. The voice spoke directly into their minds. Unauthorized presence detected. Defense protocol active. Captain Yorin shouted into his comms. Commander Velrun, it's a trap. We're under. The message cut off. Velrun's heart pounded in his chest. The fleet outside watched helplessly as the black ship suddenly changed. New shapes grew out of its surface. Turrets, shields, armor plates forming from the ship's skin. It was no longer pretending to be dead. It was alive. And it was angry. Velrun barked orders. Pull back. All ships, pull back now. But it was too late. The black ship fired. Not with traditional weapons, no lasers, no missiles. It sent out a shockwave. Invisible. Silent. It passed through the Haelor fleet like a ghost. Every ship's systems went dark. Engines dead. Weapons offline. Shields fallen. The mighty Haelor Empire's proud ships floated helplessly in space. Inside the black ship, Captain Yorin's team fought to survive. Walls closed in. Paths changed behind them. The ship played with them, like a cat playing with trapped mice. Soldiers fired at the walls, but their plasma rifles had no effect. The black metal absorbed every blast, drinking in the energy. One by one, the soldiers were separated, pulled into endless twisting corridors. No screams were heard, only silence. Back on the command cruiser, Valoran stood frozen, staring at the dead screens. This isn't a ship, he whispered. It's a weapon. High above, hidden deep within the Empire's data vaults, old warnings were buried. Warnings from long ago. Warnings that said, if you find a ship without a crew, if it moves without power, if it fights without fear, turn away. Do not touch it. Do not wake it. The Haelor Empire had broken that rule. And now, they would pay. The Haelor Empire was in chaos. Commander Valoran stood in the command center, watching the screen flicker. The fleet, once a symbol of the Empire's strength, was now nothing more than drifting wrecks. All of the ships were immobilized, their weapons useless, their shields shattered. The Vadrix, the ship that had first discovered the Black Vessel, was now gone. The Cavern, the scout ship that had boarded the Dark Ship, was also silent. No communication, no signals, no life signs. Valoran clenched his fists. This can't be happening, he muttered to himself. It's a weapon, not a ship, but it's alive. His mind raced. The Empire had faced wars, uprisings, and even the occasional alien threat, but nothing had ever prepared them for this. This wasn't an enemy they could fight with force. They had never encountered anything like it before. Sir, an officer interrupted his thoughts. We've detected a change. The ship, it's moving. Valoran's eyes widened. Moving? How? It's shifting. The ship's not just moving in space. It's changing, like it's adjusting to something. The officer reported, fear creeping into his voice. Valoran turned sharply. What do you mean, adjusting? It's adapting. Some parts of it are reforming. It's like it's reorganizing itself from the inside out. The officer's voice cracked. Sir, I think it's getting stronger. Valoran ran his hand through his hair. The Black Ship had already taken down their fleet, and now it seemed to be growing. It was not just a ship. It was alive, in a way that no one had ever imagined. Inside the Black Ship, Captain Yorin and his team were lost. The soldiers had been pulled into separate corridors. Each hallway seemed to stretch forever, twisting and bending in impossible directions. Nothing made sense. The walls moved, closing in, then opening up in new places. The ship was playing with them. No matter how much they tried to escape, it felt like the ship knew their every move. It seemed to understand their fear. The walls would shift, trapping them. If they tried to fight, their weapons had no effect. It was alive. It could feel them. One by one, the soldiers began to disappear, absorbed into the black walls. Those who remained began to panic. Where is everyone? A soldier shouted, his voice echoing in the strange corridors. Captain Yorin turned around, his weapon still raised. Stay together. We need to find a way out. But no matter how much they ran, they never reached an exit. The ship twisted around them, shifting space itself. It was like being inside a living nightmare with no escape. Yorin's mind raced. This ship, it's not just alive. It's aware. It's thinking, planning. It's trying to make us part of it. But before he could say more, a sound echoed down the hall. It was a whisper, soft at first, then growing louder. The walls themselves seemed to hum. The whisper became words. Welcome. The voice, calm and smooth, filled their minds. It wasn't just a voice they heard with their ears. It was inside their heads, a deep, echoing thought. You have awakened me. The soldiers froze. Their hearts raced. This was not just some alien intelligence. It was something ancient, something powerful, something older than the Empire itself. Captain Yorin lifted his helmet and spoke aloud, his voice shaking. Who are you? There was no answer for a long time. The walls seemed to breathe. Then the voice came again. I am Sentinel. I was created to guard, protect, destroy. Yorin's hands trembled on his weapon. Guard what? Protect who? The voice replied, the words slow and deliberate. I was created to defend, against those who would destroy. Yoren's mind spun. Against who? He demanded. Those who hunt the galaxy, those who prey on the weak. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the walls of the ship seemed to pulse. A deep vibration ran through the very air around them. The voice echoed again. You are prey, and you will become part of me. The soldiers looked around, horrified. The walls pressed closer. The ship was closing in on them, trapping them. The voice in their heads whispered one last time. You were warned. Back in the Haelor command center, Velrun gripped the edge of his chair. Why haven't we heard from Yoren? He demanded, his voice strained. His officers were trying to get a signal from the cavern or any other ship, but it was hopeless. They couldn't penetrate the interference. Every time they tried to reach the black ship, their signals were blocked, as if the ship itself was alive and defending itself. Then, without warning, a new message blinked onto the screen. It was a single line of text. From the cavern. It's not a ship. It's a weapon. It is alive. And we are its prey. Velrun's blood ran cold. For the first time in his career, he realized that the Haelor Empire was facing something they could not fight, something beyond their understanding. This was not a simple enemy. This was something ancient, something powerful. This was their mistake. And now, they were trapped in it. The Haelor Empire was no longer in control. In the heart of the command center, Commander Velrun watched the screen in disbelief. The cavern was gone. The soldiers trapped inside the black ship had vanished, swallowed by its living walls. The fleet was still immobilized, helpless, as the black ship continued to adapt and grow stronger. Velrun's heart raced. Every part of his body told him that this was more than just a fight. This was a battle for survival. The fleet is powerless, Velrun muttered, staring at the empty void of space. We've made a mistake. We've woken something terrible. Inside the black ship, Captain Yoren and his team were no longer soldiers. They were part of the ship. Yoren had been the last one left. His armor was scratched and battered. His weapon was useless. He had no more answers, no way out. The ship had swallowed everyone else, and now it was turning its attention to him. The walls around him shifted again, closing in slowly. It felt like the very air was alive, pressing against him, suffocating him. His helmet's display flickered, and then the voice echoed in his mind once more. You will become part of me. Yoren's breath caught in his throat. He tried to run, but the walls moved, twisting around him, blocking every path. The corridors seemed endless, like a maze that changed with every step. The voice was everywhere now, inside his head, in his thoughts, in his very soul. You have awakened me. You have made me stronger. Yoren couldn't fight anymore. There was no use. His armor felt heavy, and his body was drained. He could feel the walls pressing against his mind. It was as if the ship was pulling him in, absorbing him. No, Yoren whispered. Please, no. But it was too late. The ship's walls opened like a mouth, swallowing him whole. And then, silence. Back in the command center, Velrun stared at the screen. Nothing. The black ship was still there, but it had grown darker, its shape shifting like a shadow. It was no longer just a ship. It was a living weapon, and it was becoming more dangerous with every passing minute. Velrun's thoughts raced. The Haelor Empire was on the edge of destruction. Their fleet was powerless, their soldiers trapped, and the black ship, it was only getting stronger. Whatever it was more than just a weapon. It was a force of nature. How do we fight something like this? Velrun whispered, his voice trembling. The officer beside him looked just as shaken. We don't. Not unless we find a way to disable it. Velrun shook his head. It's not just a ship anymore. It's alive. It's thinking. The officer swallowed. Then we have to stop it, whatever it takes. But the question was, how? Outside, in the void of space, The black ship seemed to pulse. It was no longer just a ship. It had become something more. Its shape twisted and shifted as if it were alive. The Haelor fleet had been paralyzed, and now the ship was hunting. The fleet, once the most powerful in the galaxy, was like prey to this creature. The black ship opened up, revealing more strange structures that seemed to stretch and grow, building new forms, like muscles growing under skin. It was alive, and it was ready. On the ground of Haelor Command, Velryn felt the weight of the moment. He had to do something. Anything. He couldn't let the Haelor Empire fall like this. But what could he do? The Empire had faced countless enemies, but none like this. His mind turned to the old legends, the stories that had been passed down through generations, the warnings that had been buried deep in the Empire's archives, the stories of ancient weapons built by a race older than the Empire itself, weapons so powerful, so deadly, that they could end entire civilizations with a single thought. Could this black ship be one of those weapons? Could it be one of them? Inside the black ship, something stirred. It was not the walls, not the shape of the ship. It was something deeper. "I am the last of my kind," the voice whispered in Yoren's mind. "You will not stop me. You will never stop me." Yoren's mind was no longer his own. The ship had taken him, absorbed him into its living core. His thoughts were no longer his. He was just a part of it now, part of the weapon. He could feel the ship growing stronger, feeding off his energy, his life force. And then the ship spoke again, but this time it was different. "The Haelor Empire will fall." Velryn stood at the command center, a new sense of urgency filling him. He couldn't waste any more time. The fleet was already gone, but if there was any chance to stop this creature, it had to be now. He grabbed his comlink and called for all remaining units. They would have to fight together, as they had always done. But this time, it would be different. The Empire was facing its greatest enemy, not an alien race, not a rebellion. No, this time, the enemy was something older, something beyond their comprehension. It was alive. The Haelor Empire's last hope lay in the hands of one man, Commander Velryn. But was it enough? The Haelor Empire's last fleet, what little remained, was preparing for its final battle. Commander Velryn stood at the front of the command center, the weight of the Empire's future pressing heavily on his shoulders. He could hear the distant hum of engines as the remaining ships powered up, ready for a fight they knew they couldn't win. Their weapons, useless against the black ship, had been nothing but distractions. The ship, the living weapon, had absorbed everything the Empire had thrown at it. Every strategy, every attempt to fight back, it had all failed. And now, they were out of options. "Sir," an officer spoke up, breaking the silence. "The fleet is ready. We've prepared the last of our heavy weapons, but we're not sure it will do anything." Velryn turned to face the officer. His eyes were hard, filled with determination. "We'll use everything we have. It's all we can do. We fight, or we die." The officer nodded, but fear was evident on his face. The thought of facing a creature as powerful as the black ship was terrifying. Still, they had no choice. "We're not going to let the Empire fall," Velryn said, more to himself than anyone else. He gripped the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white with tension. "Prepare the fleet. Initiate the final strike." Meanwhile, inside the black ship, Captain Yoren's mind was no longer his own. He was lost, trapped inside the dark core of the ship. His thoughts, his memories, were fading. He could feel his body, but it was no longer his. It was as if he were a part of the ship itself, his essence, his life force, feeding it, becoming part of its living structure. "You are nothing," the voice of the ship whispered inside his mind. "You are mine." Yoren struggled, trying to hold on to what was left of his humanity, but it was slipping away, like sand through his fingers. "I will make them pay," the voice said, growing louder. "They woke me. They made me stronger. And now, I will destroy them. The ship's walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with Yoren's heartbeat. He could feel its power building. It was alive, more alive than anything he had ever imagined. And it wanted revenge. The Haelor fleet, what little remained of it, moved into position. Commander Velrun watched from the command center as the ships took their places. His heart was heavy with the knowledge that this might be their last mission. The Empire was on the brink of collapse, and if this failed, there would be no one left to carry on the fight. "They'll be waiting for us," Velrun said, his voice low. "But we have to try." "We're ready, Commander," one of the officers replied, but the fear was unmistakable. The black ship loomed ahead, its dark silhouette casting a shadow across the stars. It was still, silent, but the fleet could feel the power radiating from it, the menace in the air. "On my mark," Velrun ordered. The countdown began. The fleet's weapons powered up, their last chance to stop the weapon before it destroyed everything they had ever known. Inside the black ship, the voice spoke again. "They come. They are fools." Yoren's mind struggled to stay awake. He was losing control, his body slipping further into the black ship's grasp. The walls around him seemed to move, shifting and changing, as though the ship itself was preparing for the battle. The voice, no longer speaking in words, pulsed through his body. It was like feeling a thought, not hearing one. It was deeper, stronger, more terrifying. "They will never defeat me." The ship was alive. It had a mind of its own, and it was not afraid. The Haelor fleet charged forward, weapons blazing. The final assault had begun. Velrun's heart pounded as he watched the ships open fire. The black ship was still silent, unmoving. It seemed almost waiting for them to make their move. The weapons fired, powerful blasts of energy, aimed straight at the heart of the black ship. The beams of light cut through space like deadly knives, each one a last-ditch effort to destroy the creature before it could destroy them. But then, something happened. The black ship moved. It was not a quick movement, not a sudden reaction. It was slow, deliberate, as if the ship was stretching, coming to life. The walls of the ship shifted, expanded, grew outward, absorbing the blasts. Every shot that hit the ship was absorbed, swallowed up by its dark surface. It was as if the ship was feeding on the energy, becoming more powerful with each attack. And then the ship struck back. A wave of energy shot from the black ship, sweeping through space like a tidal wave. The Haelor ships, helpless against the force, were torn apart. Explosions filled the space, the ships breaking apart as they were caught in the wave. Velrun watched in horror as one of the ships closest to him vanished in an instant, torn apart by the energy pulse. It was over. The black ship had become too powerful. There was no way they could win. In the heart of the black ship, Yoren's last thought was of the Haelor Empire. He could feel the ship's power growing, expanding, becoming unstoppable. "The galaxy will burn," the voice whispered, "and I will be its fire." Velrun stood in the command center, his gaze locked on the screen. The last of the fleet had fallen. It was over. The Haelor Empire had fought its last battle, and they had lost. The Haelor Empire had fallen. The final fleet was gone, destroyed in the blink of an eye by the living weapon that had once been a simple ship. Now, the galaxy was at the mercy of a force it had never known, a force that had no weaknesses, no limits, and no mercy. Commander Velrun stood alone in the darkened command center, staring at the empty space where the fleet had once been. The screens around him flickered with the last, fading signals from the destroyed ships. The comms were silent. The stars outside the windows seemed distant, cold, and empty. He felt the weight of failure. The Empire was gone. There was no more resistance. There was only the black ship. He ran a hand over his face, exhausted and broken. "What have we done?" he whispered to himself. He had awakened something far beyond their understanding. The legends had spoken of ancient weapons, things capable of wiping out entire civilizations, But they had thought those stories were myths. They had been wrong. Velryn stood tall. He had one last duty to perform, one last act of defiance. They may have lost the fleet, but they still had one chance. Far above the Haelor homeworld, the black ship loomed, silent and still. The galaxy was waiting. The universe was waiting. And the black ship was preparing. Inside, Yorin had long since lost control. His body, his mind, everything that made him who he was had been consumed. There was no more humanity in him, only the ship's will, only its hunger. "I will destroy them all," the voice said again, no longer needing to speak to Yorin. It spoke directly to the universe. "All who dare to challenge me will fall." The ship had become its own entity, its power growing with every passing second. It was no longer just a weapon. It was a force of nature, and it would bring an end to everything. Back on the command center, Velryn received the signal. It wasn't from any of the remaining fleet. It wasn't from a Haelor empire at all. It was a message, a warning. "You're too late." The message was clear. The black ship had already begun its conquest. It was spreading. It would destroy everything. Velryn stood frozen, staring at the message. But then a thought struck him. He wasn't done yet. The Empire was gone, yes, but there were still others. The galaxy was full of other species, other alliances. If he could reach them, if he could warn them, maybe there was a chance to stop the black ship before it was too late. He activated the comm system, broadcasting a message to the galaxy. "We've made a terrible mistake," he said, his voice crackling through the speakers. "We've awoken something beyond our understanding. It's no longer a ship, it's alive. And it's coming for all of us. If you hear this, if anyone hears this, prepare. The galaxy is at war." In the heart of the black ship, Yorin, no longer Yorin, stood in the dark core. He could feel the ship's power reaching out, touching the stars, spreading its influence like a dark cloud. It was unstoppable. It would not stop until every living thing in the galaxy was destroyed. "This is my gift to the galaxy." The voice spoke again, but now it was louder, clearer. "All will burn. All will be mine." The ship's pulse grew faster. The darkness was spreading, reaching out to every corner of space. It was as if the black ship was a cancer, slowly consuming everything in its path. Nothing could stop it. Nothing. Except one thing. Velryn stood in the command center, his mind racing. His only hope now lay with the other species, the ones who had not yet fallen to the ship's power. If they could come together, if they could unite against this force, they might have a chance. But there was no time. The black ship was already spreading its reach. In a final act of desperation, Velryn initiated the emergency protocol, the last, most dangerous weapon the Empire had. It was a secret weapon, one that had been kept hidden for centuries. If it worked, it could destroy the black ship, stop it in its tracks. If it didn't work, it would destroy everything else with it. Velryn hesitated for a moment. The weapon was powerful, but it was unpredictable. It had never been used before, and there was no way of knowing if it would even have an effect. But it was the only hope left. He pressed the button. The weapon activated. A powerful pulse of energy shot from the Empire's remaining stations, aiming directly at the black ship. It was a last-ditch effort, an all-or-nothing move. The pulse raced toward its target, cutting through the emptiness of space with blinding speed. And then, the black ship moved. It wasn't just the ship's walls shifting. The entire ship seemed to warp, bending the pulse of energy around it. It was as though the black ship had anticipated the attack. It was no longer just a weapon. It was an intelligent being, and it was ready. The pulse collided with the ship's surface, and then exploded. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Space was still. The stars seemed to blink, as if holding their breath. And then, slowly, the black ship began to grow. Its shape twisted and expanded, stronger than before. It had absorbed the pulse, and now it was more powerful than ever. Velrun watched, horrified. It had failed. "The reckoning has begun," the voice said, echoing across the galaxy. The black ship had won. The galaxy had no more chances. The reckoning had come. The galaxy was on the brink of collapse. The black ship had become unstoppable, a force of nature that could not be defeated. Its dark tendrils had already spread across countless systems, consuming everything in its path. There was no hope left. Commander Velrun stood at the center of the command station, watching the screens flicker in front of him. The last message he had sent out had been answered only by silence. No fleets were coming. No allies had responded. The galaxy was too fractured, too divided to stand together. The black ship had won. He could feel the weight of despair pressing down on him. The Empire, the hope of billions, was gone. And now, the galaxy itself was about to be erased. The black ship was too powerful, too clever. It had outsmarted every attack, absorbed every weapon, and now it was preparing for its final strike. The stars outside the window had never seemed so distant, so empty. The beauty of the galaxy, once vibrant with life, now felt hollow. There was no longer any life left to fight. But then, a strange signal cut through the silence. It was faint, barely detectable, but it was there. Velrun's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was there still someone out there? He quickly keyed in the comms to track the signal. It was weak, distant, but it was growing stronger. It was coming from a remote part of the galaxy, a place no one had expected. Who is it? Velrun whispered to himself. He couldn't believe it. There was still hope. The signal grew clearer, louder. Then, finally, a voice crackled through the comms. "This is the Alter Fleet. We are responding to the distress signal." Velrun's heart raced. The Alter Fleet. It was an ancient fleet, one thought to be lost in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. No one had heard from them in centuries. And now, against all odds, they had come. But was it enough? Far above the galaxy, the black ship floated like a dark god, its power pulsating with each passing moment. Yorin, still trapped within its core, could feel the ship's hunger. The galaxy was within its reach. Soon, everything would be destroyed. Soon, there would be nothing left. "They are coming," the voice inside Yorin's mind whispered. "They are too late. They will be crushed." The black ship's systems hummed as it prepared for the final attack. Its power reached out across the stars, swallowing everything in its path. The last of the galaxy's resistance would be crushed. Velrun watched the comms with growing anticipation. The Alter Fleet was on its way, but it was still too far away. The black ship was already in position, its weapon systems preparing to obliterate everything. The clock was ticking, and the galaxy had only one last chance. He turned to his officers, his voice steady despite the fear that churned within him. "Prepare the final defense. The Alter Fleet is coming. We need to buy them time." The officers nodded grimly, knowing that their chances of survival were almost non-existent. But they had no choice. If the Alter Fleet didn't arrive in time, there would be nothing left. They had to hold the black ship off for as long as possible. The black ship's engines roared to life as it began its final approach. Its dark form grew larger on the screens, its shadow swallowing the light. Velrun watched in silence, knowing that the end was near. But then, as the black ship prepared to fire, something unexpected happened. The Alter Fleet appeared. It was small, just a handful of ships, but they were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their designs were ancient, built for war in ways that no one had understood. They were powerful, their weapons crackling with energy. The ships were alive, as if they were part of the very stars themselves. The Alter Fleet was here. Velrun's eyes widened in disbelief as the ships moved into formation, their weapons charging up. They opened fire on the black ship, sending waves of energy crashing into its surface. But the black ship responded instantly, firing back with overwhelming force. The energy from both fleets collided, lighting up the void of space with blinding flashes of light. For a moment, it seemed like the black ship might finally be defeated. But the battle was not over yet. The black ship absorbed the attacks, feeding on the energy, growing stronger with every blow. "You cannot defeat me," the voice inside Yoren's mind said, echoing throughout the ship. "I am beyond you." The Alter Fleet's ships fought bravely, but they were no match for the black ship. Slowly, one by one, their ships were torn apart, their energy drained by the black ship's growing power. And then, just as it seemed the final blow was about to fall, Velrun had an idea. He ordered his remaining forces to deploy the last of the Empire's secret weapon. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. The weapon activated. A surge of energy, more powerful than anything the black ship had ever encountered, erupted from the Empire's stations. It was a weapon designed to pierce through the very heart of the black ship, to break through its defenses and destroy it once and for all. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The energy beam collided with the black ship's surface, and then something incredible happened. The ship recoiled. The energy pulse pushed through its defenses, breaking them apart. The black ship shrieked in pain as its core began to crack. The darkness that had consumed the galaxy began to unravel, the power of the black ship finally being overwhelmed. But it wasn't over. As the ship's core exploded, a final message echoed through the galaxy. "You may have won, but I will return." The black ship was destroyed, but the warning remained. The galaxy had won a temporary victory, but the war was not yet over. Velrun stood on the command deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was still alive, still breathing, but the scars of the battle would remain. The black ship was gone, but its shadow would always loom over them. For now, there was peace. But Velrun knew that they would have to be ready. The reckoning had come, and someday the darkness would return.